So hi everyone, welcome back. I think we're on week 5 of Defend. So a quarter of the way through. This last week's challenge was about tracking. So if you haven't commented on how you were tracking or how tracking went for you, do so in email or on our Facebook page. I know I tracked pretty much every day except Tuesday when I had my COVID shot reaction. And I think you learn a lot about yourself. It'd also be interesting to know what apps you used and what you liked or didn't like about that, so we can share that information with everyone. We'll talk about next week's challenge at the end, but today we have a guest speaker, and the title was loosely about role modeling. But today we have Caitlin Chamberlain. Is it Chamberlain or Chamberlain?
It is.
Okay, Chamberlain. She's a doctoral student in clinical psychology at the U of A. And do you work closely with Danielle?
I do. So Danielle and I came into the program together and we're in the same lab.
Okay, and Danielle is our behavioral expert who does the personalized sessions on Mondays. And I will say Danielle will not be on the call Monday. Emma and I will be there to host, and any questions we can't answer for you, we'll either Danielle will address the next week or we'll send her an email and she'll get back to everybody. Okay, so Caitlin's interests are in the areas of self and emotion regulation around risky and impulsive behaviors. And she's specifically interested in emotion regulation and is studying emotion regulation flexibility in athletes to better understand how to help athletes manage both successful performance and mental health needs in a holistic way. So I'm really excited for your presentation. And I'll go ahead and share. Just let me know when you want us to move to the next slide.
Okie dokie. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm going to be talking today about behavior change using self-talk. So self-talk is just how we talk to ourselves. So yeah, sorry, we can go to the next slide. I'm sorry if that's a pain. Is there a way I could click it so you don't have to click it every time?
Maybe, but I don't know. Maybe remote control. Let's see. Oh, you know what? It will go out of Zoom if I have to. I'd have to go log out of Zoom and close the meeting to change my computer settings. So I don't mind.
Okay, and I do.
Jamie, can you make her a co-host?
I could, Phil, but because I'm on a Mac, I'd have to completely close out Zoom, change all my settings, it says.
Well, sorry.
Oh, maybe I can. Oh, but co-host. Maybe I can do that.
Yeah, make her a co-host and then she can share her slides.
Well, no, that was the problem with the slide share, to be able to see the notes at the same time. Okay, I don't mind, Caitlin. Let's just,
Okay.
it's fine.
So self-talk is just how we talk to ourselves about our goals. So I don't know if you've ever noticed kind of an inner dialogue in your mind. Some people hear like a voice when they're kind of thinking silently to themselves, and other people don't. I think there was some blog that went viral about that about a year ago. So the next bullet after this one, yeah, so it's what people say to themselves either out loud or as a small voice inside their head. And then the next bullet is a very well accepted definition of self-talk. So we can think of it as a dialogue people use to interpret their feelings, their perceptions, how they perceive the world, how it's a way that we regulate and change our evaluations and our convictions. And it gives us an opportunity to kind of give ourselves instructions and reinforce ourselves for things that we like about our behavior or like about ourselves. Okay, and then on the next slide, why does it matter? So it helps us meet our goals. There's lots of strategies that we can use to meet our goals. And this is one that I really like because you don't need any props or, and you can do it silently so other people don't even notice you're doing it. And it's linked to all kinds of positive outcomes. So the next few bullets talk about the different positive outcomes. So it helps us to focus our attention. So I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but when I'll catch myself when I'm doing something that's challenging for me, I'll start talking out loud, and my roommate will be right there, and I'm like, have I been talking to myself this whole time? And what it does for me, it helps me focus my attention on what I'm doing. It also helps us to process things better in our brain. So it helps our executive functioning or our brain functioning because using language, putting words to things helps our brains process things better. People who use positive self-talk have also been shown to have higher achievement. They're able to regulate their motivation more consistently. It's linked to higher confidence, higher self-worth, and also better mental health. So less anxiety, less depression, things like that. And it's also been shown in the athlete literature that it's linked to better athletic performance. And then there's lots more that I couldn't quite fit on this slide. Okay. And then the next slide, why does this work? So there's a little bullet if you press next. A little. So there's lots of different theories that explain why we think self-talk works. And I think it works in a lot of different ways. There's one kind of explanation that I am gonna cover. So self-talk is part of a ton of different effective and empirically supported behavior change interventions. And one of the big powerhouses of like a big therapeutic approach is called cognitive behavioral therapy. And it's a really, it's highly used. It's been adapted to treat almost any type of behavioral issue or psychological issue we know about. And so on the next slide, I'll talk about the model that cognitive behavioral therapy is based off of. So our thoughts and the way that we talk to ourselves is really powerful. It might seem really simple and like, what is it? How does it really cause this much change? But what they do is they influence our emotions and our behaviors. So if we think about an emotional experience and how it unfolds, we first have an emotional event. So something we're attending to, and it triggers an emotional response. And what happens before we experience an emotion is we perceive that event in a certain way. So we have a particular thought about that event. So it can be an internal event where it happens in your brain, or it can be something outside of you that triggers it. So it can be something like a dog passing away, that would be an external event, or an internal event would be something like remembering something embarrassing we did 5 years ago, and that emotional response that happens in that situation. So after the event, we have our thought, and depending on what the thought is, it triggers feelings. So does anybody have a health goal they might be focusing on that might be particularly challenging, and we could use it to kind of bring this model to life?
I've been trying to lose weight for a long time and have not been able to.
Yeah.
I've lost a little bit, but it's really, really slow. So that's what I'm working on now.
So so you have this goal, and when you're trying to focus on this goal, what are some of the thoughts that you have when you're you're engaging with this goal, or you're thinking about engaging with this goal?
Well, for me, the only time I ever lost weight was on a carb light diet. Not necessarily carb free, but if I eat 3 or 4 carbs in a day, then I gain weight.
So when you're trying to motivate yourself or thinking about this, do you typically talk to yourself like positively encouraging, or sometimes you notice like criticizing type thoughts?
Sometimes right now I'm changing what I think, so it's a little bit hard to say, but yeah, I used to really beat myself up when I made a mistake or didn't do something that I thought somebody else probably wanted me to.
Yeah.
But I've kind of stopped doing that.
Yeah, so that's really common as human beings. We have a tendency towards negative self-talk, and we'll talk about the reasons we do in a moment, but this is a great example. So we have this goal, and when it starts getting difficult or we're not happy with our ability to engage with the behaviors that maybe are our goal, we might get down on ourselves. We might have thoughts like, how could you mess up again? Or this is really discouraging. So if we have that thought in the top circle, it's gonna cause us to feel maybe things like anxiety or sadness or frustration. And that sadness, those feelings also reinforce those thoughts that we had in the first place. So the thought cycle gets stronger and those feelings start to emerge. And those feelings of maybe frustration or anxiety influence our behavior. So every emotion kind of nudges us in a certain direction towards a different behavior. We don't have to act on that, but we have these nudges. So if we're feeling sad, we might have a nudge to withdraw. We might lose motivation or energy. When we feel frustrated, we might have more of an inclination to approach the situation. And those behaviors also reinforce that first feeling that was triggered, and also the original thoughts that we were feeling. So when we get stuck in this cycle, it becomes very reinforcing. And what self-talk does is it intervenes at this thought level in the top circle, and it helps to change the cycle. So if we change that thought from, oh, I messed up again, to I'll do better this time, or I learned some things from this last try that I gave, and now I can apply it and improve the process. And so that is going to start affecting our feelings differently. We might feel more positive and hopeful, and that's going to elicit behaviors that confirm and reinforce the positive thoughts and the positive feelings and help us engage better with our goals. Okay. And then there's a little feature on this slide. So one of the reasons why I like this strategy so much is that it can be really powerful. We have, don't quote me on this, but I've heard that we have about 1,000 thoughts per hour. So if you multiply that to the number of hours we're awake, our thoughts are constantly influencing our feelings and our behaviors. And so if we start making positive thoughts a habit, it has a lot of power to help change things in our lives. Okay, so then on the next slide, so these are some different qualities of self-talk. So there's different types of self-talk or features that we can use that can match up with our different goals that we have. So below, I'm going to talk about these different features that we can play with and alter and change to adapt to the particular situation that we find ourselves in, the particular goals, and also ones that fit us better. So we can try these things out and see how each one does for us, given our unique qualities and personalities. So the first one is valence. So we can, this is getting at the fact that we can talk to ourselves positively or negatively. And the research shows that positive self-talk is the way to go. So we want to steer away from that negative self-talk whenever we can. So another thing we can do is talk to ourselves out loud or silently. When I'm around other people, I might use silent self-talk, so I'm not interrupting something, or so I don't get embarrassed if it's not the situation to be talking to myself out loud. And when I do talk out loud to myself, it kind of has extra in holding my attention on what I'm trying to pay attention to. Another quality is self-determination. So we know that when things are intrinsic to us, when things come from us, they're a lot more powerful. So when we have external rewards, so for example, kids and grades. So when parents give their kids money for A's, it might help boost some motivation, but it's a lot more powerful and sustainable when the child feels motivated from within, when they have internalized that goal and their grades are important to them. So whenever we can, we want to use self-talk in a way that's intrinsic to us. And that doesn't mean that if someone else says something or gives us a goal that we can't internalize it, but the more we can internalize it and take ownership of that goal and what we're saying to ourselves, the more powerful it's going to be. The next one is function. So we can use self-talk to help us in different ways, so with different purposes. So we can use it in a way that helps us to focus on something when we have to do something with precision, and it's more of a challenge. We might also want to use it to promote a particular emotion that helps us and do the activity that we're doing. So if someone is going to get a workout, we all might be a little bit different, but some people really, they find their workouts to be more effective when they're really hyped up and going. So you can talk to yourself in a way that kind of hypes up your emotions and gets you more excited. If we're doing a task that we're anxious about and that anxiety is getting in the way of our ability to do that task, we can use self-talk to do the opposite thing and help calm ourselves down. Let's see if I can, and then the last one is frequency. So this is how often you use self-talk. So typically, the more we use it, the more of an effect it's going to have. I did find an article that said that there is such thing as too much self-talk, but I think that's kind of hard to achieve. So I wouldn't worry too much about that one. Okay, and then on the next slide, this one's talking about the dangers of negative self-talk. So when we find ourselves using criticism or self-talk that is kind of debilitating or tears us down, it can lead to burnout and the exact opposite thing we were intending for. So it can cause us to actually detach from our goal. It exhausts our emotions because when we're using negative self-talk, we tend to use fear to kind of light that fire under our butts. But we overuse that emotion, and that fear is no longer effective in getting that same behavioral outcome. And then it starts to chip at our confidence. And when we don't have confidence towards accomplishing something, why do we even want to try? So that's one of the big dangers of negative self-talk. It also can lead to depression. So when we're really hard on ourselves, we tend to say things to ourselves that we would never imagine saying to someone we care about or a friend. And it starts chipping away at our mood, at our the way we think about ourselves, and it can lead to depression, which is one of the main symptoms is lacking motivation. So it kind of sucks our energy and our motivation. Another reason is the self-fulfilling prophecy. So when we have a negative thought, we can actually increase the chances that that negative outcome that we're predicting happens. So for example, if we're told that somebody else, before we've met someone and we're told that they are a jerk or something like that, we might not notice it, but we're probably not going to be inclined to be so friendly to that person. And we might not reach out to them or talk to them. And then that would actually facilitate that person to confirm that original negative thought that they were rude or mean or something like that. So why do we do, oh, actually this one first. So something we can remind ourselves when we feel like we need that negative self-talk, when we feel this is the only way I'm going to get something done, is we can remind ourselves that 91.4% of the things we worry about tend to not come true, and only 8.6 of the worries that we have tend to come true. So that was a study done just last year. Okay, so why do we do it? If it doesn't work, why have we evolved to rely on this negative strategy? So one reason is that it's our effort to protect ourselves. So sometimes we think that if we beat someone else to the punch and we scare ourselves into engaging in a behavior, it's gonna keep us from having a negative outcome or keep us from being judged by other people. And then the next bullet is we learn it from the way maybe other people have talked to us. So if you catch yourself with a negative thought, you might reflect on it for a second and think, where did that thought come from? Has anyone said that to me before? And you might actually be able to name whose voice that is, and that can help create distance from that thought and not have it be so internalized for you. Okay, and then on the next slide talks about different types of self-talk. So the first one is self-praise. That one helps us focus on the present, not on our previous mistakes or the future. The next one is instructional self-talk. So if you're doing something challenging that has some detail in it, you can kind of talk to yourself out loud, instructing yourself what to do at different time points. And that helps us stay focused and deliberate when we're doing things requiring skill, timing, and accuracy. My personal favorite is self-compassionate self-talk. And that's linked to higher achievement, greater confidence, greater self-worth, and we'll talk more about what that is on the next slide. There's also motivational self-talk where you're really encouraging yourself, and that one is linked to higher motivation, confidence, and lower anxiety. And then there's encouragement self-talk. So that one's been shown to be linked to higher athletic performance. Okay, and then the next slide talks about self-compassionate self-talk. So first we might have a thought if we're, so the example is someone who's taking a class and they say something and they ask a question and they feel embarrassed about the question that they asked. They feel like it was a stupid question. So they might say something to themselves like, I feel like such an idiot. I can't believe I asked that stupid question in class. Now everyone, including the professor, thinks I'm a total moron. So with self-compassionate self-talk, we want to keep 3 components in mind. So the first one is mindfulness. So that's our ability to observe and notice what we're feeling inside of our bodies, what we're thinking, without judgment. So a thought that we might tell ourselves, something we might tell ourselves to be mindful is, wow, I'm noticing I'm being really hard on myself right now. Ouch, that hurts. I'm really suffering right now. Then the next part is common humanity. So this is remembering that we're not alone, that other people also have these types of thoughts, make the same types of mistakes that we do. So what someone might say in this situation is, okay, I'm definitely not the only person who's ever felt this way. Everyone asks obvious questions sometimes, and I know that my friends have had similar thoughts and feelings at one time or another. I'm not perfect, but neither is anybody else. And then the next component of self-compassion is self-kindness. So I like to think about this one as, how would you talk to a friend? So what someone might say with self-kindness in this situation is, I'm not sure, or I'm sure nobody else noticed, and even if they did, they've probably forgotten by now. At least it was brave enough to ask the question in the first place. Next time I'll try to think about it more instead of maybe acting impulsively or acting before I thought it through. Okay. Another one is using third-person pronouns. So this one's really nice because it's really easy and it actually gives us more self-control. So all we have to do when using this one is use third-person pronouns. So when we're talking to ourselves, instead of saying, I need to do this or I can do this, we use our name. So I might say, Caitlin, you can do this instead, and that gives us some psychological distance from the task that we're doing or the emotion that we're feeling, and it helps us use more self-control. So it regulates our emotions, which has a big impact on our behavior and our abilities to engage in different behaviors. Okay, so then on the next slide is just a few more types of self-talk. So we can use it to help monitor ourselves through a task. So, and kind of evaluate ourselves as we go so we can make adjustments. So this one's a very sports related example, but we can apply it to all different types of tasks. So awesome shot, or I'm tired, I can't keep going, I need to take a break. So this one's a negative one for sure that we want to steer away from. But a negative way to evaluate ourselves is, I'm an idiot, I won't win anymore, something like that. Instructional would be saying something like, bend your knees, one swing at a time, keep your eyes on the ball to kind of walk you through what you're doing. There's also positive self-talk for confidence. So reminding yourselves you can do it, things like that to help you make efforts to work toward your goal. We also can use it to focus our attention. So reminding ourselves to think about what we're doing, for example, stay steady, strong, and soft over the rim for someone trying to play basketball. We can help regulate our emotional arousal. So we can remind ourselves, okay, take a deep breath, or if we want to increase our arousal, kind of motivate ourselves, hype us up, saying things like, yes, come on, let's go. And then a little comparison between motivational self-talk and instructional self-talk. So some things that we can say we might say to motivate ourselves are here on the left, and some things we might say to instruct ourselves when playing tennis or over here on the right. And then the next few slides show the references that I used for this presentation. And the last one is the end. So if there's any questions for me, I'd love to help answer them if I can.
That was awesome, Caitlin. Thank you so much. I
Well,
think a lot of us maybe don't think about self-talk, but I recognized some of my negative sort of self-talk patterns in what you said and how they can prevent me from like achieving the goals I've set for this group. So we've all set goals at the first few weeks of this project, and the rest of the time is like trying to achieve them.
awesome.
So I think, that was really great.